to express the ideals of their revolutionary society. The entire complex would be built of white marble, not just for its ostentation, but also for its symbolism.
Marble for the Acropolis was a local stone. And pure white stone is seen as the representation of a pure society, in this, a pure democratic society.
The marble was quarried at Pentelicon, 14 miles from the site. Like a giant diamond, it was quarried by exploiting the weaknesses of almost invisible flaws in the rock. A 40-ton block would have taken 10 men, 10 days to prise from the bedrock. Only 50% of the quarried stone was eventually fit for construction. In total, 180,000 tons were removed from the quarry at Pentelicon to build the Acropolis. Chiseled to size at the quarry, the final finishing would be carried out at the Acropolis. On the site itself, the Greek master stonemasons created these miracles of stone without the use of mortar or cement. The strength and durability of the buildings was achieved by the precision with which each stone was cut. The joins between some blocks are less than 1/20th of a millimeter. The fine black lines visible are not cracks, but the staining of bacteria built up over 2,500 years. To actually see the gap in a join would require magnification of 60. Each stone slotted into position and was locked into place by an iron clamp. Like a giant 3D jigsaw, the buildings of the Acropolis achieved a precision of building never accomplished before or surpassed since. In choosing marble as the exclusive material for the Acropolis, they challenged themselves to create a set of buildings without equal. An ambition that would push Greek science and technology to its limits. Amazingly, they worked without architectural plans or drawings as we understand them today. Instead, they were guided by a set of codes and principles dictated by the art of geometry. For the architects of Athens' golden age, the mastery of geometry was a magical discovery that revealed the glories of nature. The Acropolis of Callicrates and Ictinius is a startling celebration of their new intellectual power.
The Acropolis shows a maturity of Greek mathematics and also an appreciation of geometrical ideas. This is a work of utmost importance in that it lays the foundations of logic into mathematics and enables us to use this as a tool to explore the unknown.
By creating the Acropolis as an exercise in living geometry, its builders expressed their religious beliefs. This link between religious traditions and mathematics is powerfully revealed at the climax of the most sacred event in the Athenian religious year, the Panathenaian festival that celebrated the birth of Athena. The festival built to its dramatic conclusion with a mass procession from the outlying fields of Athens to the Acropolis. Young maidens carried the peplos, a ceremonial cloth to adorn the sculptures of Athena. Sacrificial cattle walked beside the worshippers. Squadrons of cavalry escorted them as well. For 5 days, the procession swelled in number until all of Athenian life was reflected in its massed ranks. Finally, it climbed the monumental staircase of the Propylaea. Entering the sacred space of the Acropolis through its gateways delivered worshippers to a magical point in the complex. From this point, the entire layout is determined. It is centered on the line of the sun as it passes over the site from east to west. Callicrates and Ictinius positioned every key building on lines of sight radiating from this single point. The lines are not randomly set. They obey the codes of the 12-part system Greeks used to express the divinity of the universe. The system divided a 360-degree panorama into 12 equal sections of 30 degrees each. The key buildings of the Acropolis are placed within these confines to dramatic effect.
An observer from the vantage point, which is the propylaea in this case, would see three-quarter views of the various buildings and, in fact, see the maximum possible surface area of the Parthenon from this point.
The religious symbolism of the 12-part system is also at work. 60 degrees, the angle attributed to Athena by followers of Pythagoras, contains both the Parthenon and the Erechtheion. The equilateral triangle, Athena's geometrical symbol, is also directly imposed on the Acropolis's layout. Through the unique combination of geometry and religious symbolism, the optimum position of the Parthenon's facade is set.
The proportions of the Parthenon are the square root of 5 to 1. In other words, the ratio of the longer side to the smaller side is the square root of 5.
The square root of 5 fascinated the Greeks because it's an irrational number. No number, however long, can ever precisely determine its value or even discern a pattern in its decimal places. This gap between the limits of mortal knowledge and the mysteries of nature entranced the Greeks. It was here that they grasped the limits of their imagination in the face of the genius that created the universe. The square root of 5 to 1 is a divine proportion for a divine building.
The rectangle ACDE now has the proportions of the Parthenon.
This pursuit of divine architecture carries through to the facade of the Parthenon as well. The Greeks believed that any shape had a natural area of greatest beauty, and they calculated a formula to define it. The golden section, or mean, deduces from the set width of the facade the perfect position of the columns. The halfway point is rotated upright to create a right-angle triangle. The same length intersects the longest side, creating a new length, which, when rotated back down to the horizontal, defines the golden section of the facade.
Amazingly enough, we find that there is a column positioned at exactly this point, and there is a symmetrically positioned column on the right.
From the positioning of the central columns, the rest of the facade is created. Guided by the golden mean, Callicrates and Ictinius broke with tradition and created a facade of 8 columns, not 6.
In theory, a craftsman could begin with a given length of rope and certain proportions in mind and come up with the different lengths required in building the Parthenon.
But the beauty of the Parthenon is not dependent on the golden mean alone. It is the product of subtle optical distortion designed to fool the human eye and enhance its beauty. To the observer, these columns may seem perfect, but their perfection actually lies in their imperfection.
It's been said that although the Parthenon is constructed of vertical supports and horizontal loads, that there is in fact not a single straight line in the building. That's not entirely true, but in fact, virtually no vertical line or horizontal line lacks a subtle curve or a subtle swelling or a slight inclination. These various deviations